Welcome to Iraqi Dinar News, your trusted source for detailed insights and real-time financial updates. If you've been following currency news closely, you know 2025 has already been a year filled with unexpected developments. But today's revelation, confirmed by data coming from inside the U.S. banking sector, might be one of the most surprising yet. What if I told you that two of the largest financial institutions in America, JP Morgan and Wells Fargo, are making strategic moves involving the Iraqi dinar and the Vietnamese dong? This isn't a rumor or some internet theory. It's happening now, and it has serious implications for currency watchers and investors worldwide. Let's get into what's really going on. Why are these banks, backed by trillions in combined assets, taking interest in two currencies that the average American never thinks about? The answer lies in long-term positioning. Recent reports have revealed that both institutions are acquiring positions in these two currencies. It's not a matter of casual portfolio diversification. These are deliberate acquisitions backed by internal research, forecasting models, and economic trend analysis. When a bank the size of JP Morgan shifts even 1% of its holdings, the ripple effects can influence global market behavior. Historically, the Iraqi dinar has been surrounded by speculative noise, talk of revaluation, debates about whether it could rise to parity with the US dollar, and questions about Iraq's economic potential have lingered for over 2 decades. For many investors, it was a story fueled more by hope than substance. But in 2025, there's a shift underway. Iraq has increased oil output, formed stronger regional ties, and begun enacting economic reforms that are gaining international attention. These aren't just proposals, they're turning into measurable progress. And that's the kind of foundation that attracts major institutional interest. Meanwhile, Vietnam's economy is emerging as one of Asia's most dynamic. Over the past few years, it has become a magnet for global manufacturing, with many multinational companies moving operations there due to its favorable cost structure and stable policies. The Vietnamese dong, often considered undervalued, is slowly gaining the kind of backing that signals long-term appreciation. Wells Fargo, among others, seems to recognize this and is now expanding its foreign currency positions accordingly. Why should this matter to everyday investors? Because large banks never act on emotion. Their decisions are informed by internal teams of economists, geopolitical analysts, and financial engineers. When they make a move, it's because they believe they see something others don't. So, when JP Morgan and Wells Fargo begin building currency positions in IQD or VND, it's a strong sign that they anticipate value growth, not overnight, but over time. There's another layer to this, the possibility of redenomination. Some experts suggest that Iraq may at some point adjust the face value of its currency by removing zeros, similar to what countries like Turkey and Brazil have done in past decades. Such a move wouldn't increase the value of the currency itself, but it would simplify transactions and potentially reset the psychological market perception of the dinar. If redenomination coincides with broader reforms, the international investment narrative could shift dramatically. Still, none of this happens in a vacuum. Major currency changes require a stable political climate, regional cooperation, and financial infrastructure capable of supporting transition. But the mere fact that these discussions are happening at institutional levels and that banks are already making moves tells us that they're preparing for what might be next, not based on forum chatter, but based on patterns, forecasts, and regional data. The image of Iraq and Vietnam as war-torn or economically uncertain is fading. These countries are beginning to assert themselves globally with infrastructure improvements, investment-friendly policies, and stronger engagement with international financial bodies. Iraq, in particular, is showing signs of reducing its dependency on oil, expanding into sectors like agriculture and technology, and enhancing central bank controls to fight corruption and attract outside capital. When a powerhouse like JP Morgan starts accumulating IQD, they're betting on more than just a currency. They're betting on a nation's recovery arc. It's a signal to the market that Iraq's story isn't stuck in the past. but actively evolving into something with structure and momentum. The same logic applies to the dong. Vietnam is quickly becoming a regional manufacturing leader with strong trade relationships across Asia, Europe, and North America. Vietnam has positioned itself as a key manufacturing hub, especially for electronics, textiles, and essential goods. With increasing global trade agreements and strong foreign direct investment, it's becoming one of the most attractive emerging markets in Asia. Its infrastructure is improving steadily, digital sectors are expanding, and inflation remains well managed. The Vietnamese dong may still appear undervalued today, but that's exactly what makes it appealing to institutions like Wells Fargo. They're not waiting for the rest of the world to notice. They're getting in early while prices are still low. Now the question on many people's minds is, should individual investors follow the big banks? That's where things get nuanced. While everyday investors don't have access to high-level financial models or internal risk committees, they do have access to growing public information. And that's where smart decision-making starts. It's not about mimicking big institutions trade for trade. It's about understanding why they're acting and then learning to apply that strategy in a way that suits your own financial goals. If you're exploring foreign currencies like the Iraqi dinar or Vietnamese dong, begin with foundational knowledge. Watch economic indicators. Follow real policy changes. See how countries are adjusting their trade structures, interest rates, and monetary frameworks. This type of research will always beat random guesses or emotional investing. Foreign currency investments can feel intimidating, especially when you're dealing with units like 1,310 IQD to 1 USD or unfamiliar acronyms in news reports. But that complexity is exactly where the opportunity often hides. Markets that seem confusing or overlooked are often the ones that yield the most when approached strategically. JP Morgan and Wells Fargo aren't looking to flip currencies overnight. They are making long-term bets that may take years to fully pay off. That's a lesson individual investors can benefit from. Approach these opportunities with patience and discipline. And what if the dinar or dong does gain in value? Early investors could see substantial returns. Nothing is guaranteed, of course, but it's the potential paired with consistent institutional interest that is driving attention back to these currencies in 2025. The presence of major financial institutions adds a layer of legitimacy that previous hype cycles lacked. Banks like these don't act on social media rumors. They act based on strategic forecasts, long-term economic signals, and global trends that most retail investors don't even see coming. But the impact goes beyond profits. When a currency gains strength, imports become more affordable. That means products and services priced in foreign currency could drop in cost. This influences everything from tourism to cross-border business transactions. If you're someone who sends money to family overseas or does international commerce, these shifts in value can change how far your dollars stretch. It's a reminder that foreign exchange isn't just a speculative market. It's a key factor in your everyday financial life. Let's be honest, though. Risk is part of any financial move, and especially true when it comes to currencies. Government policy changes, war, sanctions, or economic shifts can upend projections overnight. That's why you should never put more into foreign currency than you're prepared to manage or lose. The smartest move is always to stay informed, remain cautious, and seek out real expert insight when needed. Watching how the big banks act is a powerful tool, but understanding why they act gives you the real edge. Instead of simply reacting to headlines, look at long-term movements. Track what international institutions are saying. Read annual reports. Learn how the Central Bank of Iraq or the State Bank of Vietnam are steering their economies. This is how you move from guessing to strategic planning. So where does this leave us now? With JP Morgan and Wells Fargo taking noticeable steps toward foreign currency positions, especially in IQD and VND, we're likely to see more institutional activity follow. This could mean more access points for individual investors, the development of formalized exchange channels, and broader tools designed to engage retail buyers. But it also means the competition may increase. The earlier you educate yourself, the better prepared you'll be when the markets start moving. Currency activity in Iraq or Vietnam no longer exists in isolation. Global financial networks mean a shift in one part of the world can ripple across banking systems, investor confidence, and even political frameworks. So when U.S. banks adjust their portfolios, other countries pay attention, and that attention can lead to major changes in how these currencies are treated globally. You don't have to be a financial expert overnight, but you should stay aware. That's what we're here for at Iraqi Dinar News, to keep you informed, prepared, and ahead of the curve. Because in a world where timing and information are everything, the best thing you can do for your money is stay educated. Before we close, here's something to keep in mind. The Iraqi dinar and Vietnamese dong may not be household names yet, but with strategic reforms, consistent growth, and the backing of institutional players, their profile is rising. Whether or not you decide to invest, knowing the why behind these movements gives you an advantage. 2025 could be a defining year for foreign currency speculation, not because of hype, but because of the quiet confidence now forming around these nations' financial futures. If you found today's update valuable, consider subscribing and sharing this with someone who's been watching the market. Are you considering buying IQD or VND? Do you believe in the bank's strategy, or are you still cautious? Share your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear from you. Thanks again for tuning in to Iraqi Dinar News. Stay informed, stay focused, and take charge of your financial direction, because smart decisions always start with facts.